Welcome to the Front Street Animal Shelter, located in the heart of downtown Sacramento, California. Every year, over 11,000 animals come through these doors. Dedicated staff and volunteers work hard to provide quality care to these animals. Each and every one has a unique story to tell, and there's always so much to learn. We'd like to explore and share some of the real-life experiences of both the animals and the humans that can be found here in A Shelter Life. Hi, I'm Don Hinkle, and welcome to this edition of Shelter Life. Tonight we have two great guests, Pam Francis Truss and Loretta Franzi, and they're going to be talking about the phenomenal dog program that we have at Front Street Animal Shelters. Pam, Loretta, thanks so much for coming.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so the dog program at Front Street has grown quite a bit, but before we start talking about it, Pam, how did you become involved with Front Street?
Well, I decided after I retired to go back to school and do something I was always passionate about, and that was work with dogs. And part of the criteria for me to get through my class was to work at shelters and rescues, so I ended up at Front Street.
Any special reason why you chose Front Street over somebody else?
It was close to home.
Really?
It was I'm just a couple of minutes from home, and I like it. It's a lovely place.
Oh, it is. It's a great place.
Yeah.
And Loretta, how about you? How did you become involved with Front Street?
I retired after 35 years of running a business, and I took a year off and then decided I wanted to start volunteering. And it was the first place I tried and had no idea about whether I was going to like it or not. It turned out to be just awesome. I love it here.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, the dog program is something that I think is phenomenal at Front Street. And we're going to talk a little bit about it tonight. We've got some clips to show the people as well, so that's going to be exciting. But I'm going to sit back and let you guys tell me what exactly is this dog program at Front Street? What is it?
Well, I think it came about because we've started to have so many volunteers out there, and more, besides doing kennel chores, they wanted to have some kind of interaction with the dogs.
Right.
And I think it just kind of evolved into a fact that if we're going to have volunteers working with the dogs, then we need to make sure that they're working safely with the dogs and they understand, a little bit about dogs and how they think and how they operate so that we can work safely and, communicate and get them adopted.
Right. So there's obviously structure to this program then.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So when you're looking at the dog program as a whole, what are all the classes that are available?
Bunny classes, cat classes,
Well,
dog handling classes.
Dog handling classes.
Yeah, shelter greeting, adoption classes,
So
mentoring classes.
So on the dog program itself, dog handling,
Specifically, we have Language of Dogs.
what exactly is that?
The Language of Dogs, it's a great video, and dogs are phenomenal at communicating through reading and through their own body language. And dogs will tell you a lot by just the way their ears, their eyes, their tails, their bodies are. So when I saw this one film called The Language of Dogs, I felt that it was really beneficial to have all volunteers who are going to work with dogs see this, because it really tells you how a dog is what we call going over threshold, ramping up, so that you can't work with a dog if they're so overly aroused or over threshold. So by watching this video, it helps them to see the signs of dogs going over threshold. Also, to understand if a dog could be dangerous or not. So, we basically put that in there out of safety for the volunteers.
So is every volunteer required to take Language of Dogs before they actually start working with the dogs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. You have to take that. And then we put in an auto sit class, and that can be taken by any volunteer out there. And that is basically just teaching the dog an environmental cue, which is basically teaching a dog to come to the front of the kennel and sit without saying anything, and want them to present themselves nicely. Because they only got a couple of seconds for that great interview, to become adopted. So we want them to present themselves well. So if a dog can auto sit, and you can teach them to do that by just people walking by, they come up and sit, we get more dogs adopted that way.
So is that why for the most part, a lot of the dogs in the adoptable buildings, when you walk up to them, they actually will sit down and just look at you with those lovely puppy dog
That's
eyes.
why you
Yeah.
better have treats with you because that's what they're expecting.
Oh, so they have to get a reward then,
Oh, of course.
right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the auto sit program something, Loretta, that you really enjoy doing with new volunteers?
Oh yeah, it's totally exciting to see dogs take one look at either the handlers that have been around a long time or volunteers coming in and they know exactly what they're being expected to do, and they do it. Their rumps go onto the ground and they're just looking for that treat. They're just amazing. It's cool.
It's, I went through the dog handling classes. I mean, I did, but it was really rewarding to do the auto sit. And talk a little bit about when you guys are actually in the kennel. So I know that there's like the relaxation techniques that you guys use to try and bring them down from that threshold, like you would say. So the massage, the belly rubs, a little bit about that. What's that all about?
Well, we call it body work.
Okay.
Basically, it's a type of what's called T-touch. Linda Tellington came up with this technique years ago. And we find that, when you start doing body work on a dog, it kind of stimulates their endorphins and their nerve endings, and it gets them back thinking.
Okay.
So once you can get them calmed down, if they were, let's say, over threshold or reactive because of the other dogs barking in the kennel next to them, you do some body work and get them calmed down, then they can focus on you, and then you can get them back in their heads thinking again so that you can work with them.
Okay.
So we do that when we first enter the kennel, and then we do that when we exit the kennel so that we don't leave a dog all ramped up.
Got it. What else happens in the kennel itself, on the in-kennel training? Do you guys...
So yeah, we also do some other techniques with them, like Find It, where we try and get the dog to look into when we throw food on the ground and we have a little game with them where they're chasing food around. We also do a look at me, and that's where we want the dog to make eye contact. And we also do a touch, where the dog comes up and noses our hand and then gets a treat. Those are the primary things that we attempt to get the dog to learn to do, and most of them are just superb at it.
So are those, you teach that to all the dogs that are available for adoption? That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So has there been, do you think, an increase in the level of training recently? I mean, is it really helping the dogs get adopted? I mean, if one just comes and plops his butt down when somebody walks up to his kennel and does that, do you see the public reacting to that?
Whenever we're doing adoption counseling, there's nothing more fun to do than to take that dog into the meet greet area and watch a potential adopter watch the dog go in to sit and then do the look at me and the Find It and the touch. And also during our walking groups, we'll teach other tricks, stays, downs, and pretty soon the dog is just looking like they're just
They've
the
been
most
totally
amazing.
trained.
Yeah, they're the most amazing pet. Yeah, so yeah, potential pet.
So that's the in-kennel. And then what are some of the other classes you guys are doing with the dog program?
Well, our basic dog handling class includes the auto sit, includes working inside the kennel, and then it also includes working outside the kennel. Getting the dog to come out of the kennel calmly, not yanking you out, and then walking calmly with the dog on a loose leash. Teaching them that pulling isn't okay. That we want to be able to walk like a real dog.
Very good.
An
So
obedient dog.
we've got a little bit of footage
Okay.
of dog handling. And so that's pretty interesting. So this dog handling class, how many weeks is that?
It's a 4-week class,
Okay,
and after you take the language of dogs.
gotcha. So that was you. And you obviously had, it looked like four students with you, and you were actually going through quite a bit of, it looked like procedures to go in the kennel, come out of the kennel, and kind of making the dogs behave before you actually went in there, right?
Right, so our facility was built in 1909. I think the latches were probably put on just around
they're
that
still
time
there, huh?
too, and they're still there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so one of the most difficult things that I think that I had trouble learning was trying to get in and out of the kennels, and I try and do it with one hand because the other hand, arm, shoulder part of your body is leaning into the kennel, watching the dog and controlling the dog so that it doesn't escape on you. So there's, even before we even start working with the dog and training them, there's techniques for getting in and out and doing it comfortably and confidently so that the fear level's not too high. And I think that's a really hard thing to learn when you're a new student there.
Probably, because I mean, going into a kennel with a dog you don't know could probably be a little bit intimidating.
And when you watch that head going down and towards your calves,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to, it's worrisome.
On that aspect, how do you teach new volunteers that, you know, this is a natural thing to do? I mean, do they have signs to look for to make sure that they're not going into a kennel that maybe the dog doesn't want them to be in, or what are we looking for on this?
Well, first of all, Don, we're not going to put any dog that is going to put anybody at any jeopardy on our adoptable
Right,
floor.
exactly.
And our volunteers are only allowed to work with our adoptable dogs.
Right.
So that kind of takes out that part of it. But that's not to say that, I mean, we have safety rules where you can't go in if there are, two big dogs in there. One person doesn't go in there because the dogs tend to fight over you.
Right.
So you have to learn
That's
how to
when
separate the dogs, and that's very tricky. Some of us aren't very coordinated. And some of those old squeaky guillotine doors are heavy. They make a lot of noise. So you really do have to be pretty coordinated to do a lot of this stuff.
So it's a 4-week dog handling class.
Exactly.
And so in a brief synopsis, what's week 1? What do they do?
Week 1, we go over a lot of safety, do's and don'ts type stuff, and auto sits, and getting in and out of the kennels,
right?
And the guillotine doors.
And then like week 2?
Week 2?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's been a while. Week 2 was, I think, where we went in and we would start doing the find it, the touch, the sit, and also body work, and then putting the leash on and trying to teach the dog to be calm, even though they have a leash on, which would suggest that they are, we're ready to get them out of the kennel. Yeah.
So it's mostly auto-focusing and, and attention, getting them to get their attention on you.
Right, right. Yeah. So 4-week class, volunteers. How often do you run these classes?
Well, I run, there's one on the weekends that runs continuously, one a month. And then every other month I do a Tuesday morning class. So every other month I have 2 going simultaneously. And
my gut's telling me that these classes are usually full.
Yes, they are.
So
they are. I usually have a waiting list in them.
Yeah. I know that, I've obviously worked with some of the volunteers, and I know a lot of them are like, I want to go to dog handling, I'm going to dog handling. I'm like, this is phenomenal that you're doing this, because I remember it really opened up quite a bit for me when I did it. And just to retract a little bit, the language of dogs, I was amazed by the information that's on that video. And it really does help you. I mean, it helps you not only at the shelter, but it helps you with your own dog, or your neighbor's dog, or the dogs at the dog park, I mean, if anybody out there would like to, rent the Language of Dogs DVD, I know they're available, but it really is a truly remarkable film, and it'll actually teach you basics about your dog that you probably do not know right now. I could go into that, but I'm not going to go into more because it really is a really good video.
And I started communicating with my dog after I watched that video. My dog is like totally amazed that now I understand him.
Right.
So
our volunteers at Front Street, they have to go through like these basic chores, and
right.
then they get to go either into the dog end of the business or the cat end of the business, or other options as well. If they take this dog handling class, which is 4 weeks, and then they're done, what happens when they're completed with the class?
When they're done, they're graduated, then I let them loose. They can go to off-sites and be a dog handler at the off-sites with Sherry Crum, she's begging for our off-sites handlers to go there. They can become adoption counselors. They can
Shelter greeters,
yeah.
yeah, and walking and play groups.
Yep.
So-
all the enrichment programs.
Yeah.
Is there a commitment that you want? I mean, you just trained these people for 4 weeks. Is there some sort of a minimal commitment that now you expect for them to work with the dogs?
Yeah, I want them there every day.
Wouldn't that be a nice dream,
Wouldn't that be
right?
nice? Yeah. No, they're required to put in, what is it, 4 hours a week?
Okay.
2 to 4 hours a week, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the people I work with have gone through it, and they just love actually working with the dogs. And you know, the dogs just, they appreciate it, and you can tell. And it's really fun to watch some of these dogs go from maybe a little bit rambunctious, you know, to something that can actually walk beside you on the leash and actually be well behaved, which obviously helps out the adoption rate, like you said, when you go to the meet and greet. So you brought up something, and I want to talk about it, and you said the enrichment program. So, big word, enrichment, right?
Yes.
What does the enrichment program really entail for Front Street? What is it about? Tell me.
Well, enrichment is anything we can do, you know, to make the dogs, you know, to get them out of the kennel or even inside the kennel. But, you know, we're looking for different ideas to give them, a happier life and to get them, you know, to become better, you know, adoptable dogs.
Right.
Easier for you to say, but that includes a lot of different programs like our play groups, our what is it now called, the doggy social hour.
Yeah,
fun.
doggy socializer. Yeah.
So-
we also do reading in the kennels. We give them Kongs.
Reading
We
in
bring
the
toys
kennels.
in to play with them. We have the flirt pole. We can take them over to the greeting area, and the flirt pole is a really fun way to engage the dog, where it's a toy on the end of a string that's controlled by a pole, and you can make the dog run around and chase it. They have a great time. Anyway, music, that's another enrichment feature that we've got in the kennels.
So we got a clip of something called the Saturday morning dog walk, and we've also got a clip of the play group,
Super.
which I know is
Yeah.
fairly new, right? The play groups are fairly new.
Yeah, we've been doing it since October.
So we're going to take a quick look at this clip on the Saturday morning dog walking, and then also the play group for the dogs at Front Street. And then when we're done, we're going to come back and talk about those enrichment programs. So let's take a look at the clip. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So I'm going to let you guys talk a little bit about maybe the differences between these two. So Saturday morning dog walking. it looked like they were walking quite a ways from the shelter, which is fine. But what exactly is the purpose of like a walking group like that? What, besides getting the dog out of the shelter, which I know is vitally important, what else are we kind of looking to do here for the animal?
Well, I think it's good for both the walkers as well as the dogs, because the walkers it's more of an individual activity where the play group is structured. You need people showing up at the same time who are all participating and pulling in the same direction. With the dog walking, you can kind of go off on your own course. And it a lot depends too on the dog. Some dogs are more social than others. Some dogs are dog reactive. Some dogs are dog friendly to all the rest of the dogs. So we go to this special spot, which is down the street and under the freeway, and it's a huge parking lot. And depending on our dogs and depending on the handler's skills, we can either walk in parallels, or we can walk in circles, or we can walk independently on our own. It also gives us an opportunity to practice stays and heels, to do stops and turns, and of course the basics, which is the sitting and the the find it and touch. And
so when the dogs are, let's just say there's 4 dogs out there, one of the part of the clips was there was 2 dogs walking by each other, and that is just to see what the reaction of 2 dogs and how they're dog reactive or not reactive. Is that kind of what it's about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to. You want to see how reactive they are and then work with them, so that by giving them tasty treats as you walk by another dog, then the dog will change its thinking to,
Right.
oh, okay, I get tasty treats when this dog walks by, so I don't need to lunge and pull and bark and go crazy anymore.
So do they like to see squirrels?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Squirrels, skunks,
What
feral cats.
do we call that, a
Front
redirect?
street chickens, they really like those front street
We call
chickens.
that a redirect when they...
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
That's when
totally.
they go over threshold. We have to redirect them back to us.
Got it, got it.
Exactly.
So the other clip was about the play group, and I know that's something fairly new, and I want to hear about it because I really don't know a whole lot about the play group, and I know that there's obviously the social aspect, but I think there's something besides the social aspect that you're looking for. So can you kind of take us through, how it starts with just like the 2 dogs and then maybe the other ones join or whatever, and really, what are you guys getting out of it, and probably more importantly, what are the dogs getting out of these play groups?
So the process is that I go through the current dogs that are available that don't have holds on them, or they're not already adopted, or they don't have health issues, or they're not in heat. And those dogs that are still available after all of those have been checked off, or then I look for the dogs that are the most dog friendly, and that type of dog is the kind that when you look in the kennel, they're wagging from their shoulders back. They look like a really happy, friendly dog. Those are usually our anchor dogs. We start out with those kind of dogs in our yard. There's only one leader, and that person's making all the calls in terms of who comes in, who goes out, who can drop the leash, who has to hold on to their leash. We watch the dogs carefully in terms of their body language, the signals and different displays of anxiety or stress, and we pair them accordingly to how they're looking and reacting and responding to each other. We have 2 yards. We run the dogs parallel initially, and then we let them in. We hold the dogs on leashes until we're sure that there is a comfort level, that the handlers have a comfort level, and the dogs are not dog reactive, that they've met each other properly, which is front door, back door, or nose to butt kind of meeting.
Right.
And if that's all gone well, then we start to let the dogs engage, and ideally we can drop the leashes soon thereafter.
Where did this idea come from? Obviously it might be had been around for a while, but it's relatively
Amy
new.
Sadler, and that was, I think, in the early part of the last decade when she put those into play and made them a enrichment tool that for shelters, and started going around and coaching and teaching and training. And
do you feel that's made a big difference in those dogs for Front Street?
I absolutely think it's such an important part of what we're doing for the dogs there. It also really helps in terms of when we're going through the adoption counseling part of it, being able to talk to potential adopters about the dogs and how they're engaging with each other out in the yard, what their play style is, how friendly they are. You can really identify dogs that are reactive and maybe coach to, or dog selective. You can coach the adopters in terms of how to handle their dog in different situations.
And Pam, I understand that we're going to start something similar with puppies. Puppy playgroups?
Yeah, we're doing puppy socializations. Yeah. Puppies have a 12 to 14 week period that's when they can be socialized. After that, you can't re-socialize a dog. It's all remedial socialization after that. So I'm trying to get all of our foster puppies that are between 5 and 14 weeks together, and they'll be playing together. And then we socialize them to different things like surfaces, different types of surfaces, sights, different sounds. An iPhone is a great thing to use when you're socializing a puppy because you can go to your ringtones and have every kind of, bell and whistle that's on there for the sounds. Then we'll have like dress-up days. Like one day will be funny hats and sunglass days, and one day will be all about wheels, skateboards and skates and wheelchairs and walkers. So you get those around puppies.
Got it.
Once they get over their 14-week period, they don't have issues with that anymore.
So we're almost out of time, and I knew this was going to go way too fast. I just knew it was, but I wanted to say thank you to Pam and Loretta for coming on tonight. I think the dog program is phenomenal. Obviously, the dedication and work that you guys do and the rest of the volunteers in Front Street with the animals really does make a huge difference. Absolutely makes a gigantic difference in the adoptable rate. And I wanted to encourage everybody out there, if you have not done so already, please like us on Facebook. It's Front Street Animal Shelter, City of Sacramento. Go to sacpetsearch.com. You can see all the adorable dogs and kittens that we have available for adoption. I would personally like to thank all the volunteers at Front Street who make this show happen and make the shelter function and operate on a daily basis. I would also like to thank the great crew here at Access Sacramento.